The next model that we have is called the V model. The V model is also a sequential model, okay? The word sequential means that mostly the client or the end user delivers the application only one time, okay? So in the waterfall, like we see, after deploying the application, the user can use it only one time, okay, at the end, and then he uses it as much as he wants. The same with the V model after acceptance testing, like we will see now. So the V model tried to overcome the disadvantages of the waterfall. We said that one of the disadvantages of the waterfall is that testing begins late in the life cycle. So here in the V model, we made some changes, okay? You have your requirements first, okay? So the requirements are divided into two types of requirements. We can call them business requirements and technical requirements. Some people call them BRD, which means business requirements document, and SRS, which means software requirements specification. So we have two types of requirements. What is the difference between them? The first one, the high level requirements, talks about what are we developing. Okay, I need to develop an application that enables the user to sign up, order food, gives reviews, pay using cash or any convenient method. This is caring about what part. Okay. Then we have the SRS, which cares about the how part. So how will we develop this functionality? For example, in the login, we have something that's called authentication. Which type of authentication will be used in this functionality? So the business requirements or the BRD cares about the client himself or the end customer. What will we deliver to him? But the specifications or the SRS cares about the development team. So it is delivered to the development team in order for them to know how will they deliver this functionality. In some projects, the business analyst writes the requirements, the business requirements, and the system analyst writes the SRS or the software requirements specification. But in most projects, the business analyst is responsible for both of those tasks. Then we have the design. So like we said earlier, we have design after requirements, like we said in the waterfall. Now we divided the requirements into two steps. We will also divide the design into two steps. So we have high level or architectural design, and we have low level or detailed design. So when we talk about the design, the high level design means that we zoom out on the whole system, okay? We look at it from the top. So how do elements interact with each other? If the user signs up, what is the screen that we will be redirected to? After signing in, what is the first screen that he faces, okay? And what are the interactions between the different sections of the application? Which data goes between the sections? Which part of the system is responsible for editing or deleting the data? And so on. But on the other hand, the detailed design is talking about each component or module on its own, how it is developed, what are the components or the fields inside it, what are the data types that it accepts, and so on. So here, like we said, we divided the design into two steps also. And then we have coding or development or implementation. All of them are the same thing. So here, those 5 steps are replacing the first 3 steps of the waterfall, which are requirements, design, and coding. On the other hand, like we said in the waterfall, testing was not beginning early in the life cycle. So here we try to solve this problem. We have 4 levels of testing. We will discuss the test levels later when we work on them, but for now, you need to know that we have 4 levels of testing, which are unit testing, integration testing, system testing, and acceptance testing. So let's begin from the smallest one to the biggest one. Unit testing means that you test each component or unit individually. So anything that can be tested separately should be tested on its own. You test the login functionality, you test the sign up, you test the card, and so on. Then after it comes the integration testing. So in integration testing, you test the integration between different components or units. Okay, so when I sign up, will I be able to log in with the same user or not? After this, you get a whole system. So you begin on testing the whole system. After system testing, you have acceptance testing. So acceptance testing is the last step of testing that ensures that the application is ready for deployment or for usage by the end user. Most of the software tester tasks are in system testing. In many projects or in most projects, Unit testing and integration testing are the responsibility of the developer, and acceptance testing is the responsibility of the client or the product owner or the business analyst. So in the V model, we begin like this. This is how it goes. We begin by writing those requirements, the business requirements. And after this, the tester begins to review those requirements. So begin reviewing those requirements for ambiguity, for contradiction, for anything. And then find any problems in those requirements. This is called static testing. So we have two types of testing, static and dynamic. We will discuss them later. After reviewing this requirement, we begin to create from it something that's called test scenarios or test cases that will be used when the application is ready for acceptance testing. After this, we write the SRS or the specification, and we begin to review it and find issues in it. After reviewing it, we begin to create test scenarios or test cases for it that will be used in system testing. After this, we have architectural design or the high-level design. It should be reviewed, and then we create scenarios for integration testing. And lastly, we begin by the detailed design, we review it, and then create test scenarios or test cases for unit testing. So in software testing, we have something that's called analysis and design and something that's called execution. I know that it is becoming very complicated now, but all of those concepts will be discussed later. So analysis and design for software testing begin while I'm on the left-hand side. I have the requirements, I generate from it the ideas that will be tested. I have the SRS, I generate the ideas that will be tested from it, and so on. So here I begin from high-level requirements, SRS, high-level design, low-level design. But when I execute my test cases, when I run them and begin to provide input to the system and wait for output, the opposite happens. I begin from unit testing, then integration, then system, then acceptance. So here, like we see, software testing is applied from the beginning of the life cycle. Once I begin writing the requirements, I begin preparing for acceptance testing. So here, this is the advantage of the V model. On the other hand, I have a disadvantage of the V model, which is that it is also a sequential model. The client or the end user is able to see the application only one time, and in this case, it might be too late to implement any changes to it. After acceptance testing, the client comes or the end user begins to use the application, and if he doesn't like it, we need to redesign the whole process. This is the bad thing about all sequential models, whether you are using waterfall or V model, and this is why we began to think of a more innovative life cycle, which we will discuss later, which is the agile software development.